Hey everybody, it's Gina here from Gina Makes It. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new. Today I am sharing a fun video that was born out of necessity. I am in the process of decluttering and destashing. It seems like that's all I ever do is declutter like everything in my house, but I'm particularly focused on my craft room. I have so much stuff that I am just trying to get rid of, and I am feeling very overwhelmed with the amount of things that I have. And so I take a few minutes every day, if I have a spare few minutes, to just sort of declutter certain areas. And I had a little basket that had all of these scraps and all sorts of stuff in it. And so I decided that I was going to just quickly go through it and pull out all the scraps. And so I created this pile of scraps that you see to the left-hand side. And I was looking at it and I thought, you know what? I have these are all from papers and books and things, or failed projects that I liked using the materials for. I wonder how this would all look together, like torn up and, pulled together. And to be quite honest with you, I had no idea where this was going. I thought, I'm just going to glue all of this down and see what happens. So I pulled out a piece of 9x12 drawing paper, and this is drawing paper that I've gotten from Amazon, and I've linked it below a few videos ago. If I can find it, I'll try and link it again. It's very inexpensive, large quantity drawing paper that everyone in the house uses around here. And so I thought that I would just start to plunk things down. Just use a glue stick, glue and plunk, and that's basically what I'm doing. So I'm using, I end up doing two 9x12 pieces of paper, and I am kind of going along that whole rule of 3. I'm trying to spread things out. Some things I just don't like and they don't work, but I am trying to spread this whole rule of 3 around, and I'm also trying to incorporate different textiles. So I have some fabric, I have a tea bag that I actually use, an old tea bag that was thrown in there because I went through, you could see it up in the upper left hand corner. I went through this period where I was like saving tea bags. I don't even know what I was going to do with them because I didn't ever do anything with them. I have some die cut, the remains of some die cut. You can see the heart, and I'm not worried about covering anything up. The only thing that I'm trying to do is to not see any of that drawing paper underneath. I don't want any of that showing, and so I'm overlapping and I'm just gluing. So I'm going to go back to what I was saying earlier about the rule of 3, because I didn't explain exactly what I was talking about, and some people might not know what I mean. I've talked about this before in my videos, and it's something that I think my mom has told me, and I've seen in other areas of my life, is that if you want something balanced, like visually, you're supposed to use either it 3 times in a room, or if you have more than 3 instances of it, then just make sure that you use it in odd numbers. So like if you're hanging something on a wall, you shouldn't really hang 4 things, you should hang 5, because then it's going to seem balanced. So that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm using this 9x12, I'm going to say canvas, even though it's just a piece of drawing paper, and I'm tearing up the pieces of paper and I'm using it 3 times. Now this one I am using a larger pieces because I was wondering what that would look like, because I was getting down to the bottom of my pile, which was making me so happy because I had this huge pile of scraps, and now what was happening was that it was dwindling down. And you can see this red U, I used it 3 times, and I used it in different directions as well. So that's kind of important too, that it's not all the same direction that it's going. One's horizontal, one's landscape, and perhaps one has like a different sort of texture on it, and that's all that's going to do is just create more interest to your page. So I have to say that I'm quite pleased with the way that this ended up turning out, and when I was finished I was looking at it and I was like, okay, now what? Because I didn't really have any idea what I was going to do with it. I thought about scanning it and I thought about using it, and I thought, well, I'm not going to want to use this like over and over again because I'm going to get bored with it. I know myself. And so then as I was looking at it, I was sort of folding it and I thought, you know what, this would make the perfect journal cover. It's thick enough now with all of these layers. And then I thought, well, do I have to like finish it? Do I have to put some Mod Podge? And I didn't really want a layer of Mod Podge. I didn't want that sort of varnished look. I wanted it to be more organic and sort of more natural. And so what I end up doing is literally just putting it on my paper cutter, and I cut it in half, the 12-inch side, so it ends up being 6 inches by 4.5, and I get 2 out of each page. So then I get these 4 journal covers that are so completely unique to each other and to anything else that I have, that I'm just like so amazed at this. These journal covers have texture. They have this muted color that I'm always trying to achieve, this sort of coffee-dyed vintage muted pinks, greens, blues whole vibe that I'm always trying to capture in all of my projects. And now I have 4 journals, which is pretty amazing. So you can see here that I am trying to figure out like, well, wait, which way do I want to do this? Because at this point I still wasn't sure. I was thinking of maybe just creating journal cards, and it wasn't until I just cut them in half, and you can see how easily they really did come apart. So I folded them in half loosely, and then I went to my sewing machine and I did some loose sewing around, and this is the inside. So this is the other side of that, the cover, and so it's that drawing paper. And I didn't really want to see the sewing. I never really like when you can see inside sewing on a page, because it does look different than the exterior sewing. So I just took some excess coffee dyed printer paper that I had in my stash, and I am just gluing it to the inside cover, and I'm trimming it down, and I do this with all of the covers. I had trimmed down some of that extra drawing paper to 6 by 4, well actually it was 12 by 4.5, but I realized that I wanted it to be slightly smaller than my journal cover, which is just sort of like a rule of thumb that you kind of want those inside pages to be slightly smaller. So I just went back and I'm trimming them down, and I do this for all of the other 3 too. So then I end up with 4 journal covers stuffed with 8 pages of the drawing paper. And I was going to sew in the signature, but I didn't. That's like my new thing, is that I don't like sewing in the signature. So I just wrapped twine around the middle of the signature, and then I tied a bow up at the top. And then this way I can add pages or take away pages, since that seems to be attractive to me these days, the ability to customize a journal without being married to a signature that you've already created. And then when you've finished the journal, you can definitely go back in and sew in that signature as like a final step to your whole process, which is something I just thought of right now that might be beneficial to certain types of journals. So I don't know how I'm going to use these or what these are going to be for, but that is definitely an option after you've tied in your, and you can really just use the same twine, to be honest with you, and create the same type of bow. You would just use a regular pamphlet stitch inside of the middle of that signature, and you'd have like an almost identical looking spine. So once I finish doing this, I decide to decorate the cover with some fussy cut images that I got from a calendar that I got at Joann Fabrics. It was clearance. So it's a 2021 calendar, and I'm currently using it. It's a big, large calendar. It's like a normal size calendar, but it is so pretty, and I'll try and link it below if I can find it. But it was clearance a couple months ago, because obviously it was, people were done buying calendars at that point. But it's like a field journal type calendar with all these beautiful illustrations from this woman. I'm gonna have to try and find it so I can link it, because it is just beautiful. And so I cut out, and it's a thicker material. It's not like a flimsy calendar, so it was perfect for this. So these are some bluebirds. I think my husband was telling me they were bluebirds, not blue jays. And then there was a bee, this bee right here, and then there were also 2 chickadees that were together. And so just to create like a more finished look and to create a little bit more depth, I just went around the edges with some vintage photo. You could also use like a black Sharpie if you wanted to give it a little bit more depth. And so now I'm just trying to figure out where I want to put these little cutouts. And then once I figure out and I come up with a solution, I just go through and I add a little bit more detail to add interest to the covers. So at this point, I realized that I want to add some other piece of textile to each of the covers to just give it, to make it more, a little bit more balanced, because we had all of the paper collage or the collaged images, we had the cutouts, and now I needed some sort of interim, something in the middle to bring both of those layers together. And so I decided to just grab some scrap textiles off of my craft table and use those. And so for the first one, I just had a half of a doily, and it went perfectly above the bird. And for this one, I had a little bit of lace off to the side, and this is not vintage lace. This is lace that I had gotten a while ago from Joann's, or maybe it was even Tuesday Morning, I think it could have been. So I'm just adding, again, I'm using that whole idea of thirds, and I'm adding one more piece to the bottom just to kind of bring it all together and to balance it out. B, I actually had an SVG file that I cut with my Cricut that it didn't work. The blade was set at the wrong tension, and so it was ripping it, and I liked it, and so I kept it to the side knowing that I could probably use it in pieces, and I had used it in other junk journal with me's. So I cut out a little piece of the flower, and then I just went across it and I inked it up, and then I thought that it looked like the bee was kind of going on the flower, like he was going to go to pollinate it, and I really thought that was kind of neat imagery there. And then for this last one, I really wanted this bird to have a crown, and so I looked everywhere in my stash and I just could not find a crown anywhere. And so I just bunched up some of that lace that I used with the chickadees, and I sewed it and I kind of shaped it so it looked like a little lace crown, and then I glued it on, and I have to say I was really pleased. For not knowing what to do with all of these scraps and for just kind of on a whim creating these 4 journals, it was like such a satisfying project. Satisfying because A, I used something that I was probably just going to throw out, and B, it was super creative and it was an awesome creative outlet, creative session, and C, now I have 4 journals to do whatever with, and I'm just so incredibly pleased. I highly recommend you trying this process. It is very satisfying. As always, thank you so much for watching my video and for subscribing and for commenting, and I will see you on Sunday for the next episode of Junk Journal with me. Take care.